So we all hear that a lot. Why, when you're starting and stopping, you might get a bird's nest on the back. So I think we should all share how we do that.
Perfect.
There's three of us.
Yeah.
We all have different ways of doing it,
Yes, we do.
right? Okay, so Ava, go ahead.
So for me, the most important thing is that I need to bring up my bobbin thread, because now I can hold on to both tails, and I like to rest my finger against the foot, because now as I do my single stitches, and they're usually the same stitch length than what I'm going to use in my quilting, and I just do 3 or 4, and I can tuck. And if you listen really closely at home, you can, as you tuck, can feel that knot go in between your layers of fabric and the batting, and then you can go ahead and get started with your quilting. And now you can trim your threads, and that's my way of doing it.
All right, so I'm going to bring up my bobbin thread. I don't let go of either one. I hold my bobbin thread and my top thread. I leave my finger next to the foot just so that I stay right on that hole. I take 2 little stitches, a little half stitch to the right. I pull my threads out. Let me move my hand. Pull my threads out to the side and take 1 more stitch, and then I'm ready to go.
Okay, so when I start, what I like to do, of course, I put my finger here to be sure that I keep the needle positioned exactly where I want it. I'm going to bring out my bobbin thread. I want to hold on to it. And generally, I will go either 1 stitch behind or 1 stitch forward. It just depends which direction I'm going to stitch. And I'll take 1 teeny tiny, no, it's not far from the initial where I brought the thread up. Another one. I go back onto that one. And I like to do hit my start button to let it actually start stitching and put the needle down, so I know that now I can let go. I like to quilt with both hands on the machine, and now I would start and do my stitching, whatever I'm going to do. And so when I get over here and I'm ready to stop, what I like to do is just stop, and I generally will take like I go back maybe 1 stitch and take a stitch, maybe 1, 2, 3. And what I actually want to do is I'm letting it actually make a knot, so that when I pull away and bring my bobbin thread up, and then I tug on this as hard as I can, it actually will pop that knot into the center as if you were a hand quilter where you pull your knot in, and I pull it up hard. I mean, I'm actually lifting the fabric, and then I'll snip it flush, and then usually if you go like this, it'll go in. One other thing I think that I think a lot about when I'm planning my stitching is where I want to start and stop, because it's very easy to kind of hide your starts and stops. If you're doing a quilt where you have some busy fill work around a design, you then can kind of plan where you're going to hide it, I guess. I'm not someone, if on competition quilts, you could tie off and pull in your knots. I personally don't do that. I prefer to kind of be creative and figure out where it is that I'm going to hide my starts and stops. And the other thing too that I find helpful, sometimes when you're a new quilter and you find you get those bird's nests on the back, when you start, sometimes when you stop, I find that when I was new, it mostly was when I started. When you take your first initial stitches, you want to make sure that your bobbin thread is not able to be pulled. If when you start, you take a couple stitches, if you try to pull on that bobbin thread you've brought up and it moves, it's really not knotted. And that, I find, has the ability to cause a nice bird's nest on the back. So if I take a couple of stitches and I can still pull that, I'll take 1 stitch more maybe until I can feel that these won't move, and then I start, and it will make a nice smooth start for me.